Hello, Bible readers. I wanted to give you a quick update and explanation of the book of Joshua and talk a little bit about why this book is important and then kind of a preview of the book of Judges. So, I haven't given an update in a while, a lot of stuff going on. I've been teaching an emotionally healthy Christianity class and doing some other writing, and so I apologize for not doing more of these updates. I'm thankful that you've noticed that I haven't been doing them, which means that some of you are watching these and these have been helpful for some of you. But here's a quick idea of Joshua. First of all, Joshua is a hard book. We've just read the first 5 books of Moses: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is the second giving of the law. Moses is giving his farewell speech to his people before they cross the Jordan River. And then he hands off the baton to Joshua, who is one of his faithful mentees that Moses was really mentoring for the last 40 years in the wilderness. And then as you transition to this new book, Joshua is one of those spies who said, let's take the promised land, let's go. So he's been this faithful follower of Yahweh, the Lord, for 40 years. Now he's ready to take them in. And what they do, and many of you said that this was something brand new to you, was when they come to the Jordan River, God parts the Jordan River for Joshua, just as he parted the Red Sea for Moses. And so we see all of these kind of we see these things that are these symbols and these patterns that are coming up again as a way of saying, just like the Lord was with Moses, the Lord is going to be with Joshua. And Joshua is really a story of God's deliverance, God's grace. Over and over again, it's God who is fighting the battles. Just as God rescued the people out of Egypt, he parted the Red Sea, he overcame Pharaoh, he's the one who provided manna in the wilderness. So also in this conquering of the promised land, God was going to win the victory as they marched around Jericho, and they didn't lift up their sword, but they just marched around the city, and the city walls came down. God was going to win the victory over and over again as they trusted in him. And so that was going to teach them something about God's grace. And then the second half of Joshua, to be honest, is hard to read, can be a little bit boring, because all Joshua is told to do is to kind of map out the different regions. And so it's probably helpful to just type in Google the land of Israel and the tribes, the division of the tribes in the land of Israel. And it's good to kind of a visual of that, so you recognize, probably most importantly, that the tribe of Judah takes up the largest portion in the south, and that will become really the nation of the Jews, are the descendants of Judah, because basically everybody else gets taken into exile and is never returned. Everyone else kind of gets absorbed into other nations. And so it's important to see, especially where Judah fits in the allotment of land. And also it's really important to see that this is really the culmination of the promises that were given to Abraham. Remember, Abraham back in Genesis chapter 12 was called to leave his land, the land of Ur of the Chaldeans, to leave Haran and go into the land of Canaan. And he never gave Abraham actual land. He always was kind of a nomad passing through the land of the Canaanites. And then you had Isaac and Jacob had the 12 sons, and they had to go into Egypt. And ever since that time period, the promised land has just been this wish, this dream that God had given to Abraham. But now you have the culmination. So although it's kind of hard to read through, every time we hear that Joshua is allotting land to one of the tribes, one of the sons and the children of Israel, the sons of Jacob, those were the tribes, were the sons, of Jacob. That's a culmination of that promise. That's a fulfillment of the promise that God made almost 1,000 years earlier. So maybe skim over it, but skim over it with worship. And so Joshua is really kind of a highlight. Everything that happened before, there's so much mixture in it where the Israelites were always grumbling and always complaining with Moses. Most of them died in the wilderness, and yet the second generation seems to be more faithful. Under Joshua's leadership, they faithfully, for the most part, conquer the land with God's help, distribute the different tribes in the different places, and that all goes pretty well. Now, the book of Judges that we're going to start next doesn't go so well. The next generation forgot about what the Lord promised, forgot about God's ways, just like Moses and Joshua predicted. They didn't. Joshua ends his final speech saying, "For me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Throw away your foreign gods." Well, they didn't follow Joshua's lead. Many people didn't pass on the faith and the trust in Yahweh, the Lord, to the next generation. And so the book of Judges is going to be 400 years of mess and really hard to read through. It's probably one of the hardest books to read through because of how sad it is in this downward spiral of corruption. And God will raise up a tribal leader to take people back to the Lord for a moment, but they soon return to being unfaithful until we get to the time of the kings, times of King David and King Solomon, and that's a little bit of a bright spot. So keep reading, see yourself in the story. Remember, it's all leading towards Jesus, all leading toward the great leader. Joshua actually is the Hebrew way of saying Jesus. Jesus is the Greek translation of Joshua. And so the real Joshua is Jesus. The real Moses is Jesus. The real leader bringing us into the real promised land is Jesus, who's going to create the new heavens and new earth. So keep reading with your eyes focused on the future, eyes focused on Jesus. See yourself in these stories and keep reading. Don't give up. Hopefully that helps. All right. See you soon.